Has he attempted a forward pass or
Yes, he has.
really? Oh my
Yeah.
God. That's great. That's good for him.
Oh,
Throwing the ball
wait a second. Coming
forward.
from a Steelers fan, thank you very much.
Hey,
Hey,
we
wait,
know.
whoa. If you're going to pick on my quarterback, let's discuss your the
Listen, we
yeah.
know how to throw the ball, especially to the other team. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Donut Bag, part of the Pulse Podcast Network and the Pod Hub Network. In this episode, I talked to Angie Carducci from InsideHockey.com about what's going on with the Penguins. Then I do my first mailbag where I answer questions from online folks. Then I talk about what's going on in the AFC North with Ravens fan Jen. The Donut Bag starts right now. So I asked on Twitter recently if anybody has any questions. Let's call it mailbag. And I got some interesting questions, so let's get to the old mailbag. Jim Jacks Sports at Jim Jacks Media. By the way, he'll be on the show in a couple weeks. Hi, Jim. He says, "What is your favorite sports team to go watch a game in Pittsburgh? NFL, college football, baseball, hockey." If I were to pick one stadium that would be best for watching sports, you got to go with PNC Park because it's so pretty. But in terms of atmosphere, that's a good question. Right now I would say PPG Paints Arena because the Penguins have been so successful, and I've been to a bunch of playoff games, and there's nothing like a playoff atmosphere. However, I was at a Pirates playoff game in 2015, and that atmosphere was amazing and electric. So, unfortunately, the Pirates hardly ever get to the playoffs, so we never get to experience that much. I've never experienced a Steeler playoff game, but I imagine that would be just as electric, and Steeler games are a lot of fun. But so I would say probably PPG right now for in terms of atmosphere. At Donnie Druin, hi Donnie, another frequent guest. Um, he asked some weird question about time. I'm going to ignore that. But favorite uniform of any Pittsburgh team. My favorite uniform, and I love all of them, but my favorite ever is the mid '90s Penguins jersey. If you've ever seen the Snoop Dogg video Gin and Juice, it's the one with the penguin, just the word Pittsburgh diagonally on it. I love that so much. I need to get it. I still see some people have that, and I would love to get that. But that is my favorite. I know some people hate that, but well, bite me. I love it. So Craig W at Pit Penguin 44 asks, "How do you feel about penguin? Sorry, how do you feel about pancakes?" Um, that's a very deep question, Craig. Uh, I'm gonna have a hot take and say I like pancakes. How about that? Best pancakes ever. I don't know if you call what's down in Pamela's pancakes. Technically, they're crepes, but those are my favorite. Uh, Matt at Prime Chavis asks, "Have you had a Boston cream donut before, and can you agree with me they are garbage?" They're not my favorite, but I'm not gonna say they're garbage, Matt. Uh, ugh. Like I said, my favorite donut ever is basically your chocolate with chocolate frosting, chocolate sprinkles. The more chocolate, the better. That's my favorite. Um, uh, how many licks does it take to get to the Tootsie Roll center of a Tootsie Pop? They actually studied this, and they made a machine that modeled after a human tongue and concluded it takes 364 licks. But when people actually did it, it only took 252 licks. So there you go. Now you know something. Steel Dad at Steel Dad, uh, another guest on the show, friend of the podcast, and I've been on Steel City Blintz a bunch of times. Fortunately, he asks, discuss best episode for each of the four main Seinfeld characters. This brings up another thing before I talk about Seinfeld. Uh, Seinfeld is one of those things that I love dearly, and I'd love to talk about it more. But there are certain things that I don't know whether you guys want to hear me talk about them. So I don't know. And one of them is wrestling. If you want to hear me talk about wrestling, I know a billion wrestling people on Twitter, and I'm sure I could talk to anybody. So if that's something you want me to talk about. If you want me to talk about anything else, or if you have any feedback, let me know. Anyway, so the best episode for each of the main characters. Let's start with Jerry. I would say the best one. I mean, every show is about him, so it's kind of hard uh, to pinpoint one episode. But I would say maybe the puffy shirt episode where he had to wear that silly shirt, and and he says, "But I don't want to be a pirate." The best George episode. I think George is one of the best characters ever, like on any TV show ever. And he okay, I'm gonna have to make this a tie. The one where he where he said he applied at Vandalay Industries, and he's in the bathroom and he's running because Kramer answers the phone wrong, and he's saying, "Save Vandalay Industries, save Vandalay Industries," and Jerry says, "And you want to be my latex salesman?" I'd That's one of my favorites, and also the episode was called The Opposite, and that was where George just decided to do the opposite of whatever he's been doing throughout his whole life, and he goes up to a girl and just says, "I'm George, I'm bald, I'm unemployed, and I live with my parents," and she's into that. Or they go to a movie theater and these guys are incredibly rude, and he just turns around and just destroys them and just screams at them, and they shut up. I love that so much. Elaine, there's also a tie with Elaine episodes. The one where she dances funny. She does that Elaine dance, which is amazing. And the other is the nip, where she shows apparently the nipple shows on the Christmas card. That's one of my favorites. Best Kramer episode. That's really hard because that's another great character. Uh, I'm gonna say maybe the one where I think they all on the subway and Kramer goes to the horse track and bets, and he hears a tip on a horse, and he repeats that tip. He says his father was a mutter, his mother was a mutter, and also I have to mention, to me, the greatest episode maybe of any show ever is the contest, which I'm sure I'm not going to describe that, but there was a line in there where Elaine says, well, they're discussing how to uh, how they're gonna how she would be involved in this contest, and how it's different for men and women, and women they say, well, it's like shaving, and Elaine says, well, I shave my legs, and Kramer goes, but not every day. Anyway, so that's what I think about best episode for each of the main characters of Seinfeld. Um, Big Mama at Rev Franklin Big M. Hi, Big Mama. She asks, "What's the best? What's your favorite intro to a song?" To me, it's Money. Uh, Another one from Matt at Prime Chavis. Is a hot dog a taco? What? Um, I'm not even going to answer that. And um, at Y Travalt asks, where can one get a good Cuban sandwich in Pittsburgh? I have no idea. I'm not even sure what a Cuban is, unfortunately. Uh, I looked it up. It looks like Kaya is a good Cuban restaurant in Pittsburgh. But if you know of another one, let me know, and I'll let him know. So that concludes our mailbag. Thanks for listening. Oh, one more thing I forgot. Steven messaged me and said, don't forget to talk about the Slippery Rock football team. They've had 2 astonishing upsets in the playoffs in a row, and we should give the Rockets some love. They are in the regional final of the NCAA Division II playoffs, so that's awesome. They are 11-2, and they advance to the quarterfinals and face top-seeded Notre Dame. Well, that's no fair. Jeez. That seems a little bit of a tough opponent to have to face Notre Dame. Anyway, good luck, Slippery Rock, going against Notre Dame. That would be a pretty big upset if they won. So, good luck to them. Okay, Penguins have had a pretty bad November, but have looked good lately. With me to talk about the latest goings on is Angie Carducci from InsideHockey.com. Angie, welcome.
Hey, nice to talk to you, Joe.
How you doing?
Doing really great.
So, before we talk about what's going on with the Penguins now, I just learned today is the anniversary of Badger Bob dying in 1991. There's nobody. I've never met the guy. I don't know him that well. I mean, heck, he wasn't even with the Penguins that long, but he had such an impact. And I mean, am I wrong to say he basically turned around the whole franchise and got them going on winning their cups?
No, I don't think you're necessarily wrong. He really impacted the team, not just on the hockey level, but on the emotional level. I think, I think the fact that we're still sitting around talking about sayings like it's a great day for hockey really says a lot about Badger Bob Johnson and the impact he was able to make. He's a guy who just really got them in the gut. And one thing I remember really vividly is a guy like Jaromir Jagr, who's one of my favorite all-time players on any team, just being worked up to the point of tears during that tribute to Badger Bob Johnson the next season. And just really speaks to the fact that these players who make their living sort of trying to contain emotion, and we're hockey players, we're tough, we don't show emotion, being reduced to tears by a guy like that who impacted them so deeply. And then on the ice too. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say he was only there for a year.
I know.
That's it. And for him to make that big of an impact in just a year, it's amazing.
Absolutely. I think kind of that father figure sort of impact, like really relating to them as people. And then the on-ice impact as well, obviously, as a coach and a student of the game. I was hearing Sidney Crosby talk today at practice about how he felt about Badger Bob Johnson. And of course, he's a guy who never met him either. And he talked about how he feels like they would have sat around and had such great conversations about hockey because they're both big hockey nerds and great students of the game. And I feel like that's really what he brought too, is just the knowledge and the appreciation and the love for the game. And that just shone through everything that he did. I think that's really what you get when you think about him, and what really resonated with everybody in Pittsburgh. Don't you think he really made Pittsburgh fall in love with hockey to a point that perhaps it hadn't before?
Yeah. Oh, totally. Before Badger Bob, Mario was let's just say he was offensive minded. He didn't really pay him that much attention to defense. Basically, same with the whole team. You had Paul Coffey on that team too, and I mean a lot of great offensive players, and they just they were okay winning every game 8-7. But that's no way you're going to win a championship. And Badger Bob taught them that you have to have some kind of defensive responsibility. But yeah, his attitude. I remember him saying every day is a bonus, and I still think about that every day. I mean, it's true. You don't take any day for granted. He just had such a wonderful attitude.
Yeah, and that one really gets you when you think about the fact that obviously he didn't live as long of a life as he should have, and every day being a bonus is really something that resonates too when you think about your own life and people that